Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker in Washington, and a new ceasefire agreement announced today by President Trump between Israel and Lebanon is set to take effect in less than an hour as the Trump administration battles rising public skepticism and economic discontent over the war with Iran. Earlier today, President Trump announcing on social media the leaders of Israel and Lebanon agreed to a 10-day ceasefire that will go into effect at 5 p.m. Eastern. For weeks, Israel and the Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah in Lebanon have been exchanging heavy fire, killing thousands and displacing more than 1 million people. The fighting there has continued despite the fragile U.S.-Iran ceasefire. The contours of the Israel-Lebanon agreement announced today remain unclear, including major questions about whether Lebanon will be able to control Hezbollah, which was not party to the talks. Speaking to reporters while leaving the White House for Las Vegas, where he's expected to deliver remarks celebrating his tax policies, President Trump touted the deal between the two countries. Take a look.
We're going to be meeting with Bibi Netanyahu, as you know, and the president of Lebanon. And I had a great talk with both of them today. They're going to be having a ceasefire, and that'll include Hezbollah. We will have an agreement between Lebanon, and they're going to take care of Hezbollah. But they're going to be working on Hezbollah right now. But we'll have an agreement between Israel, very importantly, and Lebanon.
Meanwhile, the U.S. ceasefire deal with Iran is set to expire in just 5 days. President Trump today offering mixed messages on whether he's willing to extend that truce.
Are you considering extending the ceasefire with Iran? With Iran?
We're doing very well, I can tell you. Maybe it'll happen before that. I'm not sure it needs to be extended. Just so you know, Iran wants to make a deal, and we're dealing very nicely with them. We've got to have no nuclear weapons. If we do, that's a big factor. And they're willing to do things today that they weren't willing to do 2 months ago.
If there's no deal, would you be willing to extend the ceasefire, or will the fighting resume, Mr. President?
I would say the fighting. If there's no deal, fighting resume.
For clarity, you're willing to extend the ceasefire?
Well, we'll see. I don't know that we'll have to. Ideally, we'll, but if I needed to, I would.
The president today also brushing aside rising gas prices, which have climbed above $4 a gallon amid the ongoing turmoil in the Strait of Hormuz.
How much longer will Americans continue to see these high gas prices?
Well, they're not very high. If you look at what they were supposed to be in order to get rid of a nuclear weapon with the danger that entails. So the gas prices have come down very much over the last 3-4 days. I know, you know, that's what ABC says. But the fact is that if you look at the stock markets up, everything's doing really well. And the big thing we have to do is we have to make sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon.
It comes as 2 new polls show a majority of Americans disapprove of the president's handling of the war, which is now in its 7th week. And while the president continues to insist the war is close to over, a plurality say they believe it will continue for months. Diving deeper into those numbers, there was surprising agreement across the ideological spectrum that the war could last for months. NBC News White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez is in Las Vegas ahead of the president's speech, and NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley is live in Tel Aviv. Thanks to both of you for starting us off. Gabe, let me start with you. The president traveling to Las Vegas as we speak. He's going to talk about affordability, but it does come amid this pressure, this polling on Iran showing that people disapprove of his handling of the war. What are you expecting when he talks today? Do you think he can stay on his economic message?
Well, that's a big question, Kristen. Certainly the president has had a lot of things over the last several days step on that economic message. The White House has been trying to hit that economic message hard on tax day yesterday, touting the benefits of the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill and hitting the idea that policies like no tax on tips are benefiting Americans. They're also saying that some 53 million filers have taken advantage and claimed at least one of the president's tax cuts from that signature bill. But he is running across a lot of issues across the country when it comes to gas prices. You played what the president said earlier today. Here in Nevada, certainly gas prices a big concern. around $5 a gallon on average here. And we spoke to drivers earlier today. When we got here, there is a lot of concern about how long this war could drag on. But here at this roundtable, Kristen, the president will be here with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent speaking to other business leaders. We did speak outside this venue with a Trump supporter who says that she is a business owner, came to see him from 45 minutes away. And the no tax on tips policy, she says, has been huge for the business that she runs, for bartenders and waitresses that work at her small business. So the president really trying to hit that message hard today. But when he spoke with reporters earlier today, questions were dominated by the ongoing Iran war, as well as the president talking about his ongoing feud with the Pope. So a big question today will be whether he can stay on this message, Kristen.
It will be a big question. We'll be listening very closely. On that ceasefire the president announced between Israel and Lebanon, he says that he spoke with both sides by phone. What more do we know about those conversations, Gabe?
Well, since the president's announcement, we have heard from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and also Lebanese officials who say that, yes, they did agree to this proposed ceasefire. The big question hanging over all of this, though, what would Hezbollah say? Now, we understand, according to a senior Hezbollah official, that if indeed Israel does stop its attacks on southern Lebanon, that they would consider this. But certainly that over the last several days has been something the Trump administration has been trying to broker this type of ceasefire. Just several days ago, back in Washington, Secretary of State Marco Rubio sat down with Israeli and Lebanese leaders for the first time in decades. So certainly this is something the president has been working frantically to achieve over the last day or two. But, Kristen, the conflict in southern Lebanon between Hezbollah and Israel, of course, is just one of the many issues hanging over the broader peace negotiations. So the president, though, touting that as he heads here to Nevada, where we expect him to speak in the next couple of hours.
All right. Gabe Gutierrez traveling with the president in Las Vegas. Thank you so much, Gabe. We really appreciate it. Let me head over to Matt Bradley now, who's live in Tel Aviv. Matt, what are you hearing from Israeli officials about this ceasefire with Lebanon? Is there optimism that it can hold?
I wouldn't say there's necessarily optimism. The Israelis clearly didn't want this ceasefire to stop their operations in Lebanon. And as part of that, we've seen the far-right fringes of Israeli politics, some of whom are allied with Benjamin Netanyahu, harshly criticizing this deal and the prime minister, saying that basically, the job is being left undone. And it looks to many Israelis like Benjamin Netanyahu is acquiescing to pressure from Donald Trump to end the fighting against Hezbollah. The prime minister just addressed the nation and reassured them that Israel's military activities north of their border in Lebanon will now keep Israelis in the north of the country safe from Hezbollah rockets. And the Israelis have been making clear that their job is not yet done, that they plan to disarm Hezbollah, just as they've planned to disarm Hamas, which is still very much a work in progress. It hasn't even begun. So this is a formidable political challenge ahead of the Israelis and the Lebanese government, who are now, presumably, depending on how negotiations go from here, going to be partners with the Israelis in disarming Hezbollah. That is going to be a very delicate diplomatic dance ahead. I spoke with a member of Hezbollah, a senior official. He said that Hezbollah welcomes this deal, that they have always been part of the negotiations, that they gave their assent to this deal, which is the reason why the Lebanese government had approved it. And they also said, and they will continue to say, that the reason why the Israelis went for the ceasefire was because Hezbollah can claim victory.
All right. Matt Bradley, great reporting. Thank you for bringing us that conversation. We appreciate it. Joining me now on set is the former NATO Secretary General, now Norway's Minister of Finance, Jens Stoltenberg. Minister Stoltenberg, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here in person. I want to start off by getting your reaction to this breaking news, President Trump announcing this temporary ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. What is your level of confidence that this can actually hold?
So first of all, I think we all need to recognize that this is good news, and hopefully it will actually mean that there will be a ceasefire and that fighting will end, and that will, of course, also end all the killings and the human suffering we have seen. and hopefully also then be the first step towards some kind of lasting peace arrangements. But of course, there are always uncertainties, so it remains to be seen, but I think we at least now have a possibility we haven't had for a long time.
And of course, we know Vice President J.D. Vance was in Pakistan last weekend holding talks with Iran. President Trump floating the idea that there could be more talks in the coming days. What is your understanding about where those talks are heading right now?
Well, I believe that talks is the only way to try to end this war, the whole war in the region, in a way where we stop seeing so many people being killed. This war is first and foremost about all the people who have been lost their lives, their homes destroyed, the people forced to move. But of course, this is also a war that has severe economic consequences. I'm attending the spring meeting of the International Monetary Fund, and we see that forecast for growth has gone down, forecast for inflation has increased, and therefore also for the global economy, for the prices we face in our everyday life, it is important to try to end. And of course, the talks that are hopefully going on is a way to make that happen.
Well, let me ask you about the IMF summit here in Washington, D.C. As you say, growth has gone down. The IMF warned in a report the disruption to oil markets could slow growth even further, fuel inflation, and raise the possibility even, Minister Stoltenberg, of a global recession. Do you think that's a possibility, a global recession?
Well, according to the IMF and our best experts there, it is a possibility, but IMF highlights the uncertainty. They have now actually outlined different scenarios, and they all very much depend on how long the war will last, how long the Strait of Hormuz will be closed. And if it doesn't last so long, then of course the consequences will be much less severe than if it continues. But even if the war ends today and the Strait of Hormuz opens tomorrow, there will be some lasting consequences because it has been a very significant reduction in the supply of oil and gas. Prices have already gone up, also on commodities like fertilizers, which will mean increased food prices, and a lot of infrastructure production facilities have been destroyed. So it will take time to rebuild that and to get the flow of energy and other commodities up and running again.
You talk about the Strait of Hormuz. As you know, President Trump has been very critical of some European countries, some Asian countries, calling on Europe and Asia to do more. He says that those countries rely more on the Strait of Hormuz than the United States. Is that a fair criticism? What do you make of what President Trump has said on that point?
Well, I think we all want the Strait of Hormuz to be opened. The question is, how do we best secure that? And yes, there have been some different views, some different opinions among some European countries and the United States. But now I think we have to look forward. We welcome any talks, any attempts to try to find a peaceful solution. And the Europeans have actually now decided also to sit down and discuss among themselves what can they do, how can they contribute to safe passage and to ensure that we again can have a free flow of energy and other commodities out of the Persian Gulf.
Minister Stoltenberg, this is yet another moment where the tensions between the United States and NATO have intensified. I want to play you a little bit of what President Trump had to say today about NATO and get your reaction on the other side. Take a look.
We spend trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO, and when I asked them to get involved on a much smaller situation, which is Hormuz and Iran, they weren't there for us. When we asked them to get involved on a very minor skirmish by comparison to what it could be, they weren't there. So I don't think they'd be there for a large skirmish, and therefore I think they've got themselves a problem.
What was your reaction to what President Trump said?
Well, I take it seriously when the President of the United States expresses that kind of criticism. At the same time, I think we need to understand that NATO is a defensive alliance, and NATO is about defending all allies. And the Europeans are doing much more now than just a few years ago. President Trump and other U.S. presidents have criticized Europeans for not spending enough on defense, and they have been right. But this has now changed. All European allies are investing significantly more in defense. Some European allies, like Poland, the Baltic countries, in my own country, Norway, we're actually now spending a larger share of our economy, our GDP, on defense than the United States. So this has changed. And it's not only about resources, but also about geography. My country, Norway, is bordering Russia. Just on the other side of our land border, we see the highest concentration of nuclear weapons in the world: missiles, submarines, bombers. And these weapons are not directed at Norway. They are directed at the United States. But Norway helps the US to monitor, to track the submarines, to share intelligence, and to give you early warning and to tell exactly what the Russians are doing. This is part of the US homeland defense provided by a NATO ally, Norway. And there are many other similar examples. So the US is safer with a strong NATO, and therefore I expect and believe that the US will continue to be committed to NATO.
Let me ask you, do you think this would have unraveled differently if President Trump had sought the support of European allies on the front end, particularly as it relates to the Strait of Hormuz and securing it?
Well, I think fundamentally we need to change, to distinguish a bit between NATO as the institution, an alliance with strict rules of how we make decisions, for NATO to be involved in any operation, be it in Afghanistan, as we were for many years, or in the Balkans. We need unanimity, all have to agree, consensus, and therefore it's about sometimes a bit cumbersome way to make decisions. That's one thing. That's NATO as an institution. Then, of course, individual NATO allies, they can participate in different coalition of the willing, as we have seen in many different places in the world. We saw it, for instance, in the fight against ISIS in Iraq and Syria. So I think if there was a real wish to have NATO allies on board in one way or another, then of course there has to be consultations on beforehand and to agree actually on how to do this.
Very quickly, because I want to move on to Ukraine and also Hungary, but do you think that there has been lasting damage done to the relationship between the United States and NATO in the wake of this war with Iran?
It is difficult, and we should not, oversee this as a real problem. Having said that, NATO has been through many crises before. We are 32 nations from both sides of the Atlantic, starting with the Suez crisis in '56, or when France actually left the military cooperation NATO in the 1960s, or the Iraq War, big disagreements between NATO allies. We have always been able to overcome those differences because we are safer when we are together than apart, and that's good for Europe, but also good for the United States.
Well, let me ask you about Ukraine. Fighting has intensified there, the Russian attacks against Ukraine. Your successor, Mark Rutte, said, quote, "We cannot lose sight of Ukraine." Are you concerned that that's exactly what's happening?
First of all, I totally agree with Mark Rutte. And second, I feel the responsibility, and we should all feel the responsibility to remind people of the war that goes on in Ukraine. And just last night, we had one of the biggest attacks with drones, with missiles, with ballistic missiles, cruise missiles on Kiev and other parts of Ukraine. And we need to support Ukraine. The good news is that Russia is not winning this war. They have actually lost 50% of the territory they controlled at the beginning of the war in 22, or the full-scale invasion. Second, they have, over the last year, pushed and really launched big offensives. They haven't gained any territory. What they have is they have suffered high casualty rates, like 1,000 per day, wounded and killed. And Russia cannot sustain that level for a long time. And therefore, actually, I believe that Ukraine may prevail and that Russia will be forced to sit down and accept some kind of a negotiated solution where Ukraine continues to be a sovereign independent nation in Europe.
It's a significant statement that you think Ukraine can prevail. Let me quickly play for you something that Vice President J.D. Vance said about Ukraine and get your reaction to that.
One of the things I'm proudest that we've done as administration is we've told Europe that if you want to buy weapons, you can, but the United States is not buying weapons and sending them to Ukraine anymore. We're just out of that business.
What is your response to hearing that from the vice president? Does it undercut President Trump's argument that he wants to try to end this war and that he's focused on that?
First of all, I welcome that the U.S. has done and continues to do a lot to support Ukraine. This administration makes weapon systems available, not least advanced air defense systems, Patriots. They also provide information and logistics to help the Ukrainians, which is of great importance. But I would have liked to see that the US continues also to provide some financial support, because now almost 100% of the payments for the weapons, the financial support to Ukraine, is provided by European allies and Canada. And of course, we all have a responsibility. We should do this together, and therefore I would welcome more support from the United States.
Last question I have to ask you before I let you go. The elections in Hungary, Viktor Orban out of power after 16 years. What are the implications for the EU, for NATO, and quite frankly, the United States as well?
So first of all, I think it's important to recognize that it shows that Hungary is a democracy. Viktor Orban lost the election, and he declared that very early on that election eve that, well, I lost, we congratulate the other candidate. That's a good thing, regardless of what you think about the policies of Viktor Orban. It's democracy. The second, of course, the new Prime Minister is much more positive to cooperation within the European Union, and he's more positive to supporting Ukraine. So he, as far as we understand, will not block the support from the European Union to Ukraine, and that is of great importance for Ukraine, but also for all of us, because if Putin wins in Ukraine, it will not only be a tragedy for the Ukrainians, it will make the whole world more dangerous, because then we see that authoritarian powers like Russia can use force to get what they want, and that's not good for any of us.
Minister Stoltenberg, thank you so very much for being here in person. We really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or watch live on our YouTube channel.